Hey, what's up guys? Today I want to talk a little bit about build making. This is more, honestly, this is more of a, I don't want to say new player topic, but I feel like I hear so many people ask about the build, like every time, what's your build, what's your build, what's your build? And I always find it funny because I always use the same build. Like in every video where I'm using like strength build, it's always 54 strength, 18 dex, with 38 endurance, and with 59 vigor every time. And every time I'm playing with a dex build, like to this point, it was always the same: 59 vigor, 38 endurance, 24 strength, 48 dex. And the reason why I wasn't promoting, let's say, the dex build was because honestly, build making, it's very straightforward in this game. Like it makes sense to make your build for your own need, and it doesn't necessarily always make sense to copy someone else's build. Like for instance, I think a lot of people would benefit from using my exact strength build, because 54 strength, 18 dex, while you have 38 endurance and 59 vigor, that's very standard. You hit all the necessary breakpoint. If you're wondering, you get more stamina per point at 30 endurance, at 34 endurance, and at 38 endurance, as well as 42, 46, and 50. So those are like the breakpoint at which you optimize the amount of stamina you get per points invested into endurance, for instance. Then obviously there's vigor. I don't think it's a good idea to go under 58 vigor if you are at meta or above. I know we always see like everyone that we play against that have like stupidly low vigor, but memes aside, like you can technically make a specialized build that might be like very tight for point, and it might make sense in some very rare cases to go under that. Or maybe you're using Rapid Glitch or something like that, of course. But most of the time, really, you always want 58 vigor, so you always have to consider on your build that you should be having 58 vigor at least. Obviously, it's even better if you get 60, but it depends on where else you need your points. Like for instance, usually you want to put like the rest of your points, like the way I look at it, it's very simple. You take the fashion you want to use and the heaviest weapon or the heaviest setup you want to use with that fashion. So you then optimize your build around that. For me, I always like to have high endurance because I swap a lot. I utilize a lot of different like heavy weapons for swap, especially like the great bow, for instance. So a lot of my builds are optimized to carry the great bow plus an offhand weapon, which is usually not something that most players would gravitate toward. Like most people don't really use the great bow much, and they don't use their main weapon in their offhand either. And so the offhand weapon is something that is really mostly like swap and inventory focus. I made some vid about that if you're wondering about why I play with my main weapon in the offhand, but that's besides the point. For build making, you really want to build around the heaviest setup with the armor you want to use. Or maybe you want to rock some fashion like all the time, and then you want to have a swap for what would be like your optimized armor set. Like for instance, if you really want to win, then you just swap armor and go with whatever poise requirement that armor gives you. Like for instance, maybe you like to wear like the scaled armor for fashion, but then when push comes to shove, you just full Lionel swap or something like that. I don't think full Lionel is necessarily like the best set out there, but that's just an example. So you should always prioritize your defense first, that's one. And then after that, you should go, you should look for hitting offensive breakpoints. Like for instance, with a strength build, it's very simple. You want to go for 54 strength because that's a major breakpoint for any two-handed weapons. If you're using something power stance continues scaling extremely well past 54 strength. However, if you are going to build around power stancing weapons or using power stance weapon, it's going to start to get way more optimized to look at a dex build with lightning infusions. Just because lightning infusion just penetrates defense a lot better than pure physical or than fire infusion or other types of infusion. Lightning is just straight up the most efficient damage type that you can really get at meta level. At lower level, I believe status is probably more efficient, especially Frost, but at meta, if you want to be like very efficient for your damage, you're going to be looking at Lightning Infusion for the most part. Now, with that being said, for Dex, you want to hit 50 Dex as a breakpoint if possible, and then 55 is really the sweet spot for a Dexterity breakpoint. You can still put points into offense after that for a Dex build, but the return are really much more generous at 55 Dex and at 50 Dex. And so once you build your build, you want to keep these breakpoints that I just mentioned in mind. For something like a Fate build or a Magic build, anything that's melee, you want to have 50 int or 50 Fate, and have the minimum stats requirement for your weapon in Strength and Dex. And usually, if you want to hit those, it's going to be a little more costly stats-wise to have like 50 Fate, let's say, and have like the minimum Strength and Dex that you need for like all the weapons you want. Usually you're gonna have to cut back on endurance, and so this is where you get to choose like which type of build you mainly want to use. Like, it's going to be related to like the type of weapon you want to use and which build offer like the best damage. So basically, like the way you choose, let's say, a Dex build over like a Fate build is mostly going to be about, okay, so I want to have X amount of endurance. Maybe the Dex build is going to allow me to have like a less stats invested into offense for a good return, whereas maybe the Fate build is going to be a little more costly to get that very high damage, for instance. So there's always questions like that when making your build, but ultimately it comes down to obviously your personal preference, but really the tools that each build give you. Like, another point for picking one build over another, like some weapons just perform significantly better on some infusions. Like, for instance, the Freya Curved Greatsword that I'm using right now. I think this is one, if not, like, so far it's been probably my best invasion weapon. And I know it would sound very strange for any good player who duels a lot, because it's not like a particularly I mean, it's not a bad weapon for duels, but it's not like, you know, it's not recognized as like a powerhouse when you're in a 1v1. Actually, it would be very difficult to get hits in on a good player. It would be very annoying to approach because of the hyper armor, but it's not the type of weapon where you can force aggression as much, or force, I shouldn't say force aggression, but it's not the type of weapon where you'd force roll catches as much as you would with like a twin blade, like a two-handed thrusting sword, like a Pada, or, you know, there's so many more weapons that are way easier to hit with. But invasions are really all about that burst damage, and there's other things that come into it, like being able to hit multiple people at the same time. The hyper armor also comes in handy, but all of that just to say that the Freya Curved Greatsword is particularly strong on strength because it just gives a lot more AR than other builds when you have it fire infused. And with Flame Strike, I know there's always people like that ask me, like, does it boost Flame Strike damage? No, it doesn't. It doesn't, but it's still the best damage you're gonna get for a Flame Strike weapon. Like, basically Freya or Curved Greatsword, like the Beastman Curved Greatsword, would probably be like just a little bit higher. I think it might even be the same. I'm not sure. But these Curved Greatswords basically give you like the best Flame Strike damage for their moveset. And so having a high damaging Curved Greatsword, and Freya is better than the Beast one simply because it has way more range. And so you decide to pick Freya because on strength build it has ridiculous AR fire infused and has ridiculous flame strike damage, and so it allows you to go hit one running attack into one flame strike and the guy is either dead or in one-shot range. And this sort of stuff is really what makes the difference in winning and losing like difficult invasions. Like, how fast can you delete someone? That's really mostly what it comes down to, because turn and burning, like 3 people chasing after you, it's really not that hard to hit like at least one of the 3 of them, like here and there. What's hard is getting the damage fast enough before the others are able to cover their teammate. And so picking a weapon like that, for instance, is a big reason to choose a strength build, over, let's say, a Fate build, where you'd have that curved greatsword with Flame Strike, but it would not perform as well, especially not with good armor. So it's more optimized to use that on a strength build. So that could be a reason why you go for strength. Same thing with the Golem Greatbow, which is a big part of my gameplay. Like, I use Golem a lot. Actually, I won the last 2v2 tournament we did mainly with PSGS and Greatbow, and I picked the Dex build there because I wanted to focus on the Power Stance Great Spear damage, and the Greatbow came in second. But the reason why I didn't go for Fate was that I really wanted that Greatbow damage. So the best choice for Greatbow damage is for sure Strength, but the second best is Dex. And so you have to weigh in these sort of decisions when you pick the build you want to choose. And it's really not that hard because we get a ton of tools like the build planner, and there's Amelia's tool that where you can calculate your damage for different infusions and so on and so forth. So really, it's not that difficult to pick a build over another, and it really comes down to what you're looking for, like, out of your build. It's not necessarily optimized for one weapon. It could be just a build that allows you to use multiple weapons. It could be a build that's specifically optimized for one weapon, like very specialized. Usually people that specialize build like that usually make their builds for 1v1. Because it's more straightforward. There's less like surprising situation or things that could like get out of whack, like in a fight or something like that. But yeah, that's the main things. Those are the main points I wanted to say about build making. I hope you found this information somewhat useful or entertaining, and that's going to be it for today. I hope you guys have a good rest of the vid and rest of the day. Alright, take care, guys. Oh, I didn't realize we killed 2 there. You missed trying to co-invade with the stream. This game killed that. Dude, C-Mac. I feel you on that, like, so much, man. Like FromSoft doesn't realize that this was really what created this fucking sense of community, really. It was that tribalism of, like, the gankers versus the invaders. Like, it was actually 2 tribes fighting each other. It's just not a thing anymore. Aw, thank you, Rock. Yeah, let's use Sight like he does. good. Didn't mean to grab that. What the fuck was that move? Just playing sloppy there. Getting some help from his teammate there. Isham, you should have done the normal running R2. Okay, let's try that. Bro. Help. Come on. Could not have missed that. Kind of bullshit. Oh, okay, that's enough playing. Bro. That's enough.